Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the King and Pocket Aces, brought to you by rotoballer.com. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Aniano, Pocket Aces, and joining me as he always does, my good friend and the king of fantasy sports, Mr. Scott Engel. Scott, as it is one of the bright spots of the week, I get to talk sports with you for the next hour or so. How you doing, my friend?
Doing good. Busy time of year. It's another one of those nights where I'm going to have two televisions on because the Mets are playing and the Knicks are playing. I know you don't watch basketball, but as we record this, the Knicks are on their biggest winning streak in 7 years. And they're trying to nail down in the seed. They're trying to nail down actually possibly home court in the first round of the playoffs.
That's crazy. Maybe I have to get in because I gave up on the Knicks when they couldn't beat Jordan with Starks and Oakley and Charles.
That was a long time ago. People gave up after that.
I dabbled back with the Knicks in the Carmelo Anthony era, and it hasn't been an era of late. It's been an error, but maybe I may have to get re-involved at this point because I mean, Scott, you could probably tell me better than anybody. I mean, they're for real, aren't they?
They are for real, and I know not everybody's watching this from New York, so just bear with us over here, while we talk a little Knickerbockers. It's, time to bring your fair weather butt back. It's, they are for real though. It's because nobody's expected Julius Randle to play at the level that he did. And Tom Thibodeau's doing a great job of coaching. They play tight, watchable games every night. They're very competitive, and during free agency is going to be very interesting because I think people actually for the first time in I don't know how long we're going to want to come to New York and play because this team is exciting again. It's compelling.
Yeah. Well, that's the big key for them is getting any of the free agents.
I decided to get back into watching the Knicks this year. I didn't expect them to be good. But there was a game when they went up to Boston and beat them in November. I was like, wow.
They brought you back in there, that's for sure. Yeah. Guys, whether you follow basketball, football, baseball, PGA, MMA, esports, or NASCAR, head over to rotoballer.com and get involved there as we cover everything. Whether you play DFS or season long, rotoballer.com, the place to be. And sign up for the premium package. Right now, the MLB premium package. Use the promo code KING. Save yourself a little money courtesy of Scotty, or the promo code ACES, letting them know I sent you there, and save some money on that, guys. NFL Draft is now with about a week away. Got tons of great content there, and we'll have continuing coverage and content concerning the NFL Draft, the Major League Baseball season, NBA playoffs, and a lot more. Scott, let's talk some fantasy baseball.
Shall we? And I'm representing the Mets this weekend.
You are. I'm representing. I got my Met T-shirt on underneath here. The sport that you and I first met over, was fantasy baseball. That was the first thing we've ever worked together on. One of the better days of your life. I'm pretty sure it was the beginning of my end. But nonetheless,
the memories are tearing me up, man.
They bring you back.
Yeah, but I remember that first time. I remember we with the sports bar Foley's, which no longer exists.
What a shame that is.
And me and Adam Rodas walked in, and you're sitting off to the corner. Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
We had talked. We had never met, and that's when I decided to finally grace you with my presence.
I listen to you every morning, and one day I'm going to be taking over the morning, all right? So you better watch your seat.
I wasn't that Italian back then, huh?
What?
But anyway.
It wasn't Italian necessarily. It was just New Yorker.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
But Scott, one of the fun topics this early in the season is, what to do with hot players, what to do with cold players. Do you sell high on players, or do you hold them and think it's going to last? So let's start off. Let's talk about some players who are off to tremendous starts. And I want to get your take on what you want to do with them. Are you going to keep them on your roster, or are you going to look to trade them for what could potentially be their peak value? Okay. And I want to start with Marlins rookie Jazz Chisholm, hitting 325 at the time of this recording. 3 homers and 3 stolen bases. He's been one of the most highly added players of the first couple of weeks of the fantasy season. What is your take on Jazz, and what do you do with him going forward?
We always learn lessons as we go along in fantasy baseball. And here's another lesson that spring training does count. It just depends on the player. For certain players, it does. Jazz Chisholm got everybody's attention when he stole 3 bases in 1 game late in spring training. He went undrafted in a lot of leagues. And when there was a lag in some leagues between draft day and the first week of waivers, he went for a lot of money in waivers, like $300 and a $1,000 cap. And we've seen some very impressive home runs from this kid. You know, not just the speed. Like off of DeGrom, it was over exit velocity of 104 plus miles per hour. It was the first time in DeGrom's career he had ever allowed a home run on an 0-2 pitch.
Wow.
And he had another impressive homer last week too. So the pop and speed is there. You know, we heard about this guy in the Marlins system for a while, but he still had to beat out Isan Diaz in spring training, and he easily did that. For me, personally, if I bid $250 on him, I'm keeping him, because I guess it's an emotional thing. I'm not trading a guy away that I spent a quarter of my budget for in free agency. I'm riding that out to see, you know, it's kind of a pride thing. I picked him up. You know, it's of course, look, you know, I'm being a little funny here, but you know, it depends on what the deal is if anybody's making an offer, but I'm not actively shopping him, because this is the kind of guy that you get late in spring or early right before the season on waivers, and he bolsters your team because he wasn't in your draft plans.
Yeah.
So
and now potentially you're getting 15,
bolstering everything else you have. You spent a lot of money on him. You just don't want to get rid of him. You're like, then you end up saying, oh, I spent $300 on him and then I traded him away, and you know, what did I get back from it? You're gonna have to get a really nice return to pry him away from me. Look, there's gonna be peaks and valleys, as the cliche goes, because as a young kid, there's gonna be stretches where he goes cold when the league has more of a book on him, but the pop and the speed is there, and he's a real nice plugger for the middle infield spot. I know it's early, but you'd have to offer me something significant. I want to see something proven for my $250 in return.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. You know, 325 now. His strikeout rate has actually gone down a little bit from where it was in his minor league career. It sits at just over 25%. He's walking a ton. He's got a 451 on base percentage. So you do love that he's willing to draw a walk, walking 17.6% of the time. So let me throw this trade scenario out there for you. You talk about a proven commodity. Would you give him up for Jeff McNeil?
No.
Really?
I don't know
That
how much. I don't know what the power ceiling is for Jeff McNeil again. We've seen 2 different seasons of power. He could match Jeff McNeil in power, but the reason why I wouldn't trade him for McNeil is because McNeil doesn't have that speed.
Yeah.
And the speed is rarer to come by.
Okay. That's fair.
I could be wrong on this, but you know, I'm looking at categorical what I need here. Now, if I want a much higher batting average and I have a ton of speed, which a lot of fantasy teams don't, then that makes sense to make the swap because it depends on what you need. But I want to keep the stolen bases, the potential of stolen bases. Because 3 stolen bases might be 2 more than McNeil steals all year.
Mm-hmm. Another player, Scott, another spring training guy where spring training mattered, and another hot ad off the waiver wire early in the season, Yermin Mercedes. 404, 4 homers, 12 RBIs. He's become a major part now of that White Sox offense. Another player we saw, $200, $250 fab bids go in. Okay, now he's not going to hit 404. Can argue he might not even hit 300. Okay, but the power has the opportunity to play here, Scott.
Yeah, plus he's a hell of a relief pitcher. I think he hit 88 on the radar gun the other day.
I saw that.
On Patriots Day. Yeah. There was some people that weren't happy. Like, why throw him out there to do that? What if he gets hurt?
Yeah.
So I see that, but just being funny about that. But I spent like $77 to get him in Tout Wars, so I'm more open.
Early, right? It was like right after the first couple of days.
First, I think a lot of people like in that Tout Wars mindset, the very smart mindset, the kind of guys that use gallery view on Zoom. It's very, very, very smart guys in Tout Wars like me.
Yeah. But you got him after the first 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, I got him after the first. Didn't think it would
last, and it has lasted.
Well, it was actually wasn't. It was actually after the first 3 days. Yeah,
right.
I bid $77. I'm in a Tout Wars mixed salary cap, and this guy could hit. They just always had to find a place for him, and showing they want to keep the bat in the lineup. They actually used him at first base one day this week. So. He's going to strike out a lot. He won't give you a great average, but the run production is definitely there. So, again, like Chisholm, if they get hot early, the league gets book on them, video. Baseball's constant game of adjustments. They adjust back. You adjust again. And as long as Mercedes and Chisholm can do that, they'll be worth the free agent pickups.
Fair enough.
That you already spent on them.
Yes, Jared Walsh of the Angels, somebody I drafted coming off his almost out of nowhere season last year in the short sample. 344 home runs, 13 RBIs. Albert Pujols still hangs over him a little bit, but the Angels are realizing Walsh needs to play every day. This guy, for me, I drafted him, and similar to what you said earlier, he's a player I want to hold on to. Unless I get overwhelmed by an offer, kind of out of pride, right? I drafted him. I knew he was going to be something. I see 25-plus home run potential out of Jared Walsh. What's your take on Walsh? Are you willing to dangle him? Maybe get a player, a bigger name player off to a slow start, so you sell him high for somebody off to a slower start? Or is Jared Walsh a first base corner infield option the rest of the year?
He is a cornerback. There's guys switch the positions later in his career, and early on, they played Albert Pujols the first 2 days. I think it was ceremonial for opening day. People always already getting worried, but they came out and showed a bunch of bop like right when he got in the lineup, and there's no way you can get him out of it right now. And where he's hitting the lineup, you think he's going to continue to see good pitches as well, and he's hitting the ball very hard early on. This guy is for real. And like everybody else, I'm not going to say broken record because nobody listens to records anymore, really, unless they're collectors. It sounds repetitive, but this is another player where he's going to have his valleys, but overall, he's going to give you a decent, not terrible batting average, but it's going to be a lot of power and run production in a good Angels lineup. So I'm open to trading anybody. I think people know who Jared Walsh is. They're not going to offer you a superstar in return, but corner infield, if I have Jared Walsh as my CI, I feel set.
Yeah, I agree. Jared Walsh in a league where I'm in with Josh Hayes has been a terrific find for me where I drafted Luke Voit. I drafted him as my corner infield. I was able to slide Walsh into that spot. So it's worked out. He's held up his end and kept me in contention there while Voit returns from injury.
You worried about contention in mid-April?
I don't want to fall too far behind ever. I'm not worried about being in first, second, or third, but I never want to be too far behind in stats.
I saw one of my teams go from 11th to 6th the other day. So
it's due. Don't get me wrong. But if you're in a big run, a big day, you have 4 starting pitchers, something like that. But I don't want to spend the whole year chasing.
No.
You never want to spend the whole year chasing.
I would say by the end of May, it starts getting harder to catch up in a rotisserie league, whereas head-to-head is always different.
Head-to-head is different, right? But if you're chasing in a rotisserie, you need more than your team just to get hot. You need injury or other teams to fall apart. Head-to-head a little bit different. I agree with that. Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles, 355, home run, 2 stolen bases. I saw him go for a lot of fab just recently as well. Potential 15 stolen base guy, but another player who he's not going to hit 355. So, I mean, are we holding on to Cedric Mullins just for the hope of 15 stolen bases? This player to me is more of a sell high than any of the other players we've mentioned so far.
Like I've said many times before, when you play in leagues with fantasy baseball leagues, what are the people? Fantasy baseball players are the most savvy of any fantasy players. Everybody who plays in a seasonal league plays pretty much at an expert level. There's no selling high on Cedric Mullins. Everybody knows what you just said, Anthony, that this is not a guy that's going to hit 355. You're going to hope to get 15 steals. If you drafted Cedric Mullins in like the 20-something round, you're happy with what you have, and you can just hope that he hits well enough to stay in your lineup. There's no way he's going to keep this sort of thing up. Can you continue to depend on him as your fifth outfielder? That's what you're looking at. You know he's going to regress. You're not going to get a whole bunch of pop. You'll take that as a bonus. He goes out of the yard once in a while. But, if you get a dozen homers, 15 steals, you're happy. That's a nice return for where you drafted him. Nobody's going to give you anything significant for Cedric Mullins. Do you want Danny Duffy for Cedric Mullins? Yeah.
I would do it in a heartbeat.
But then again, the guy with Duffy might be pulling back and saying, I don't know. Maybe I'll give you Arahara instead.
Yeah.
That's the kind of trade you're looking at, like JT Brubaker for Cedric Mullins sort of
That's
thing.
another trade I would do. If I could get a starting pitcher for Cedric Mullins, I make that trade.
You might not even get Brubaker. I might be shooting too high.
Maybe.
It might be Kohei Arahara, who actually I was tipped off by my buddy Rusty Ryle, who used to play for the Diamondbacks and share a team with him. He told us to pick up Arahara this week, and we got 5 2/3 shutout innings.
There you go. It's always it's a little insider trading.
For you youngsters who want to learn hitting, check out the Rusty Ryle Baseball Academy on Facebook.
There you go.
Yeah.
Scott, one of our team players, Brandon Nimmo, on base constantly, 543 on base percentage. There it is. 447.
Hold on, I got to do my Brandon Nimmo impression. Hold on.
That is quite the impression, my friend.
Thank you.
But Scott, I drafted Brandon Nimmo. He's been great for me. The batting average is off the charts. I will say this: in an on-base percentage league, Brandon Nimmo to me is almost untouchable because that on-base percentage is going to end up over 400. It always does. But he doesn't have enough power for me. He doesn't have enough speed for me. If somebody knocked on the door and made me an offer for Brandon Nimmo, it would be something I would have to consider, okay, in a batting average league, because he's not 20 homers. He's probably not even 10 stolen bases, and he's never really been a 300 hitter for his career. So there's a lot of stat correction coming Brandon Nimmo's way, as much fun as it's been having him on our roster right now.
I think so, but he'll give you a decent batting average. On base percentage leagues, obviously his value is much higher.
Yep.
There will be a little pop and the occasional stolen base. You could do worse for a fifth outfielder.
Right, but you can also, if somebody wanted him and you like the return, you can make that return.
What's the return you get on a Brandon Nimmo? Again, are we talking trading for Arahara here? Are we talking trading for Adam Frazier?
If you need starting pitching, if you need catching help or middle infield help.
Nobody's going to give up a catcher for a Brandon Nimmo because in a two-catcher league, no.
Oh, in a two-catcher league, no. Nobody can afford to trade a catcher in a two-catcher league.
No.
There's nothing I hate more in fantasy baseball, by the way, than a two-catcher league. Hate it.
How do you feel about it?
I hate it because there's all of about 3 catchers in Major League Baseball who can actually hit. I hate it.
Actually, Carson Kelly may be making it 4.
Maybe.
It's off to a hot start.
Hate it. I'm playing Jacob Stalling of the Pirates as my second catcher in a two-catcher league.
There you go.
Where I am at.
This man reads my new waiver wire column in The Athletic.
I didn't even see it.
I mentioned Jacob Stallings.
He's actually hitting around 300 right now.
Yeah.
I drafted him as my second in a auction. I got him for $1 in a 2-catcher league.
Every Friday. Scott Engel on the Athletic.
That's right. You're in the Athletic now. That's big. Look at you.
Yes.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
One last player who's off to a scorching hot, and I'll be honest, this is a player I don't believe in. Just too many injuries in his career, but that's Mitch Haniger of the Seattle Mariners. 319, 14 RBIs, 4 home runs early in the season. Great start. He's had success in the past. But, Scott, this is a player who's just never been able to stay on the field. Enjoy the hot hand while you can. But to me, the numbers will come back to earth.
You know, you have to have insurance ready because, like you said, we saw him play real well in 2018. We even saw some speed. He doesn't have a stolen base yet. But then he had a great spring, which kind of raised interest. And now he's hitting leadoff because, you know, Dylan Moore can't hit his way out of a paper bag right now. And the Mariners are playing really well. It's very interesting. You know, every day I watch this betting podcast, the Sportsline Early Edge on sportsline.com, and they were talking about betting-wise how the market has not caught up to the Mariners being good. So for the next few days, you know, you should be looking to bet the Mariners too if you're a wagering guy. But the Mariners are playing very well, and Haniger's playing very well. It's just a matter of him staying healthy. You know, he's scalding the ball, he's hitting for average, hitting for power, and there's no doubt the return's still going to be there when he's healthy. But from where you drafted him, the expectation is that this guy could get hurt. Yeah. So if somebody offers you something good for him, I would take it. Otherwise, you just sit back and take what you can get while you can get it.
Let's go the other way now. And let's talk about some players who are off to terrible starts. Now, not all of them are droppable. Some of them may be. But at the same time, these are players you may try to get if a team has kind of given up on them. And I'm going to start in Baltimore. Ryan Mountcastle, second-year guy, had a nice year last year. He was a useful fantasy player, okay? But right now he's hitting 180 with 1 home run. Now, I'm not going to look to trade for Ryan Mountcastle. Okay, not enough track record that I'm going to trip over myself to get him. But my question is, in a 12-team league, on April, whatever, 20th, 21st, whatever it is right now, whenever you're watching this, is Ryan Mountcastle a droppable player in that 12-team league?
I think if you dropped him right now, it'd be an overreaction, but I would bench him and pop somebody else in the outfield if you could, or get somebody else you can use in your utility spot. Again, I bring up somebody like an Adam Frazier who can give you decent production. Mm-hmm. If I can move somebody else to outfield and, you know, maybe pull him out, or, you know, maybe just get another outfielder. I don't know if Adam Duvall is the answer because he's just so hot and cold. Streaky, but yeah. What outfielders do you have on your bench? You know, do you have a Jordan Luplow maybe who's hitting better? You know, stick in Jordan Luplow for a week and stick Mountcastle on the bench. See, sometimes these guys, when they get benched, they respond. I benched Taylor Trammell in a league this week.
You sent the message.
3 RBI night and a home run.
You sent the message. Sometimes you got to send a message.
Send a message, but it depends. What you have on your bench, if you can, reserve him for now. Yeah. You're not going to cut him because it's too early in the season. Players start slow all the time.
Keston Hiura. I'm going to take my victory lap now. Scott, it was on this show I screamed and hollered. You talked on SiriusXM. I don't know if it was Josh and Florio. You guys talked about how much I go crazy. And I told anybody on any show I did alone, on the rest of Rotoballa's YouTube channel, my ADP shows in the preseason, I screamed it from the mountaintops. People thought I was crazy. Oh, he's 30-30. He's 30-30. I go, the only 30 he is a 36% strikeout rate, Scott. He is a terrible, terrible major league hitter. Tell me I'm wrong.
So far, you don't look wrong. It is early, and
I don't care.
But it's
getting early, late, Scott.
See, you went the way of though I won't draft him. But what about for those that did? It's another case of.
Then I hope you finish in last place with him because I warned you. I warned you.
Here's something. I don't have Keston Hiura on any of my teams,
You listened.
But here's something, though. This is somebody you could trade because if you're going to stick with what Anthony says and you don't like Keston Hiura, okay, there are other people out there who believe it's just a slow start. And if you can unload him now and you believe what Anthony says, this is a player where you do it now and you actually sell low on him. Maybe you could trade for another guy that's starting slow that you believe more in over the long term.
Fair enough. I'm 36. His only 30 is his K rate, bottom line. Tommy Pham. Now, Tommy Pham's interesting because I was a little nervous about Tommy Pham because he had a tough offseason, if you remember, right? He got stabbed at a nightclub, right? That doesn't exactly line up with your training regimen, okay? No. Hitting 135, hasn't hit a home run. He's not really stealing as many bases as you would like. I like Tommy Pham. I think he's a pretty good player. He's a hold for me, but like Mountcastle, tough to keep him in our lineup right now.
I have to keep him in the lineup because I feel like Tommy Pham's a better player than this, and he's just going through a cold streak. Cold streaks get more magnified when they're in April because we've been waiting for the season to start, especially after a shortened season. But it'd be less magnified if he was hitting 136 for half the month of July. So Pham the pop's going to be there. The speed is going to be there. He's even had one steal. So I have Pham in one of my leagues. I just leave him in there because I just know he's a better player than this. And some good players get off to cold starts.
All right. Two more players I want to ask you about. One I'm not very concerned about. The other one is another one that we can maybe argue if he's droppable. But Ozzie Albies of the Braves. I'm not worried about 157.
There's no argument that he's droppable. He's certainly not droppable.
No, not droppable. No, not Ozzie Albies. 157, not worried about that. 2 home runs, not worried about that. He'll get over 15, close to 20. He hasn't run yet, though, Scott. And he's somebody we drafted with the hopes of a 2020 season, right? He was that power speed that we thought Jazz Chisholm was going to show us. Now, I know it's early. He can still rattle off a bunch
I had him
bases.
the number 1 ranked fantasy baseball second baseman. I took him in the third round in 3 leagues.
So are you concerned by not just the batting average, but the lack of running?
Lack of batting average translates to no running. He can't steal first base.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about Ozzie Albies. He got back in the lineup. It was a minor injury. He missed the weekend. You know, if somebody was worried about Ozzie Albies, go ahead and trade with them if they're panicky. You know, we get towards the end of April. I'm not worried about Ozzie Albies. Again, it's like I said with Pham, although Albies to me will produce better than Pham.
Yeah.
That when these players start cold in April, it gets more magnified because it's the beginning of the year and everybody's been waiting for the season to start, especially on the heels of a shortened season. So I'm not worried about Ozzie Albies. What am I going to do? He's not like Mountcastle, where Mountcastle doesn't have that track record. I bench him. I'm keeping Ozzie Albies in my lineup because the worst thing I could do is have bench him and then he goes on and has a really good Ozzie Albies week. You know, to me, nothing to see here. Move on.
CJ Cron, the last player we want to talk about on the baseball side of things today. CJ Cron, hype train, picked up so much speed as spring training was coming to an end, in my opinion, and I said this to you, it reached an absurd level, an absolutely absurd level. Oh, he's going to Colorado. He had a nice spring. Now the games count. And CJ Cron still hasn't homered, and he's hitting 182. And people were tripping over themselves, thinking they got the steal of the draft. They got 30 home runs in the draft out of CJ Cron. And I've had CJ Cron in the past, and he's a nice hitter. Okay? But he hasn't done it in 2 years. He's not doing it now. And right now, that Colorado effect is grossly overrated with CJ Cron, Scott.
It's going to be interesting with Colorado this year because they lack more talent than they ever have in a lot of years. And when they trade Trevor Story, they're going to lack even more talent. So the guys that are producing now, you know they're quality players because if there are players in danger, they're not producing, etc. And if they don't produce, like both of their catches have been terrible so far, pretty much. Picked up Dom Nunez because he showed a little pop, We thought Diaz was maybe going to be a good pick, but then these guys are not showing us anything. But with Cron, it's another thing of where I bench him, but then again, you have to be careful. Let's remember it's early. CJ Cron is a streaky power hitter, and you don't want him on your bench when he has that 4 home run week.
Yeah, I don't know if I want him.
And remember, you can't overrate power going to Coors because it's not a power park. It's more.
But that's what everybody did, Scott. That's my point. Everybody did that. Yeah, but everybody overrated the power with him going to Coors, and they had him putting up power numbers he's really never ever put up, and that's why I thought people were crazy over CJ Cron.
He's still got 25 plus homer power, though, and this guy could knock out 3 in 3 nights. Okay. So that's what you have to be prepared for. I think you can wait on him more in a roto league and a head-to-head league. You tend to have less patience, especially if it's head-to-head categories. I think you tend to have less patience. So that's another guy where you don't cut him, but you bench him, but you run the danger. See, that's the problem with a player like CJ Cron. You put him in your lineup, he's going to go cold. You bench him, and he's going to get hot. Those kind of players will drive you crazy.
Absolutely. That's always the way. That's for sure. All right, everybody. We've just about reached halftime here on the King and Pocket Aces. Like we said at the start, take this moment. Head over to rotoballer.com. Sign up now for any of the premium package and save some money with the promo code KING or ACES. And when we come back, we're going to continue what we've been doing the last couple of weeks and take a look at the FFPC Dynasty ADPs. Today's position, the quarterback position. It's going to be a fun one, so stay right here with the King and Pocket Aces show. Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of the King and Pocket Aces. Thanks, as always, for finding time to join us. We broke down some hot and cold hitters in Major League Baseball. And now it's time to talk a little fantasy football. Wrap it up with a little fantasy basketball, courtesy of rotoballer.com. And Scott, let's dive right into the football. This has been now part 3 of our conversation of the FFPC Dynasty League ADP values. A couple of weeks ago, if you haven't seen it, go back and check it out. We broke down the running backs. Last week, we talked wide receivers. This week, let's take a look at some of these ADPs for some of these quarterbacks in these dynasty leagues. And really no surprise, right? Patrick Mahomes, the first quarterback off the board, going at an overall pick of about 32. No surprise there. Josh Allen as QB2. No real surprise there. Lamar Jackson didn't play as well as we thought. I have really no objections to the top 4, Scott, with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. First 4 quarterbacks off the board in these dynasty leagues, ranging from overall pick 32 to Lamar Jackson at overall pick 60. Do you have any objection or any thoughts on those 4? Or is that kind of how you would expect a FFPC dynasty league to go?
If we're playing an FFPC Superflex, I actually want Patrick Mahomes number 1 overall because, with some running backs, we've even seen that Christian McCaffrey, he's not even guaranteed to be durable. The one superstar sure thing that I can be assured of in a super flex league is Patrick Mahomes. So, Josh Allen to me second. If I'm playing in a seasonal league, I'd probably put Aaron Rodgers a little higher. But to me, Dak Prescott, has to be right up there with any of those. Now that he's going to return healthy, you look at the weaponry that he's going to have. That means a rebound year for Ezekiel Elliott as well. I think Dak Prescott's going a little bit undervalued in both seasonal and dynasty formats. I think he's back in for a terrific year. He wants to be proved that he's worth the big contract. Sometimes we see with players that they relax with the big contract or they don't live up to it. I don't think Dak Prescott's going to be either. I think he wants to win ball games in the playoffs. He keeps hearing that he hasn't done that. Lamar Jackson thinks he's heard the same thing. I think he's a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. You look at what he has. He has CeeDee Lamb. He has Amari Cooper, who it will turn 27 during the season, and I don't think we've seen the best year from him yet. You can throw to Ezekiel Elliott out of the backfield. They have Michael Gallup. Remember what I've said about Dynasty Leagues. I want to win now in the next 2-3 years, not just look at 10 years. I'm very high on Dak Prescott.
So if Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott is currently going 5th in these Dynasty Leagues for the FFPC, Dak Prescott over Lamar Jackson?
Definitely.
Over Kyler?
Definitely.
Who do you put him
I
over?
take him over both Jackson and Murray because Jackson hasn't really proven to us yet that he can be the kind of passer that we want. And we've seen Dak Prescott do things as a running quarterback and rushing in touchdowns. I just feel like he's a dual threat too, and he's underrated in that regard. Whereas Lamar Jackson, he was a disappointment last year. We still haven't seen, I thought we were going to at least see his floor passing-wise be what it was in his rookie year, and it wasn't. He actually regressed overall statistically as a passer, and adding Sammy Watkins is not going to be enough. You know how I feel about Sammy Watkins.
Yeah.
He'll command a lot of defensive respect. Kyler Murray's very excited, and he's got a lot of upside, and he can throw the ball downfield, but in terms of the high percentage passing game, we haven't seen the consistency yet. And I feel like Dak Prescott gives me a good chance to win this year too, maybe a slightly better chance than Kyler Murray. If you want to take Kyler Murray over Dak Prescott, I'm not vehemently against it, but I just feel at this point, a healthy Dak Prescott is better than Kyler Murray, who's got more to prove in terms of operating an offense on a consistent week-to-week basis. Don't give me that he's got A.J. Green because that means nothing to me, but he does have a deep receiving crew. He does. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. Let's see what they do in the draft. Maybe they add to that wide receiver room because I was listening to SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio this week. I believe it was Brad Evans' show, and they were talking to one of the Arizona beat reporters and saying, they kind of swung and missed with Andy Isabella and Keyshawn Johnson. Maybe they look to replace or upgrade on those guys in the draft. So there's a lot of optimism for Kyler Murray, but I still think he's a work in progress.
Okay. We could agree, disagree. I think we do agree, though. Those top 5 are the top 5. You want to ticky-tack over the order. I get it. But now outside the top 5, and this is always where I find these dynasty formats fun. Trevor Lawrence going as QB 6. Justin Herbert at 7, coming off that monster rookie season. Okay. I'm going to skip on Deshaun Watson for a minute because to me right now he's a separate question.
Yeah, I got him in the 13th round of a seasonal draft.
Yeah. Joe Burrow is at QB 9, coming off the ACL. And Russell Wilson is QB 10. Surprised that a second-year Joe Burrow coming off a big injury is ahead of Russell Wilson? Are you surprised Trevor Lawrence is ahead of Justin Herbert and Russell Wilson? Okay. Is this, again, what drives you crazy? Drafting for 5, 8, 10 years down the road instead of trying to win now.
So right now, we're talking about the FFPC ADPs, and they're provided to us courtesy of FantasyMojo.com. Yes. Make sure you go to FantasyMojo.com for lots of great FFPC data if you want to study it there. And if you want to play in the FFPC, all Rotoballer readers, listeners, viewers, etc., go to rotoballer.com/FFPC, and you can get a discount automatically applied to your first FFPC team that you draft. So, you want to go ahead and do that. It's like I've been talking about on these shows. People put too high of an emphasis on youth when it comes to dynasty leagues. They want to push the youngest guys who are the youngest and they believe have the most to the front of the line when they haven't earned it yet. To win now and win later in a dynasty league, you have to balance it. You can't be taking Trevor Lawrence over more proven guys, even Justin Herbert, who's already shown what he can do for a season, when he hasn't played it down yet. You can't be taking him over a Joe Burrow, who's already shown what he can do us in a half a season. You can't take him over Russell Wilson. I know people a little bit down on Russell Wilson, but they're going to end up regretting it because, to me, I'm okay with taking Trevor Lawrence maybe top 12 in a dynasty league, maybe even back top 10, but he hasn't played it down yet. Yeah. You have to remember, especially with Dynasty leagues, people are saying, I want to win for the next 8, 10 years. So much going to change in the next 2, 3 years. You're not going to have the same scope on your team in 2 to 3 years that you might have had a few years ago. If we did a draft, 3 years ago, you would have never thought that Matthew Stafford's going to end up in this great situation on the Rams. Look at what he's done. People didn't draft Patrick Mahomes in his rookie year in a dynasty league expecting him to be quite this good. You can't look too far into the future. 2, 3, maybe 4 years, but not 10 years. It's not about the youngest. It's a combination of what we've seen so far and what's proven. Because you look at Russell Wilson, he's 33 years old. That's not old for a quarterback. Russell Wilson's got another 4 or 5 years left on him at least, to play at a pretty good level. And it'll help you win in the next 2, 3 years. Justin Herbert, to me, no doubt. I saw he's got to be rated up there next, right after that top 5. He came out and showed immediately what he could do. Joe Burrow had a great first half, and that team's going to be throwing a lot. So, to me, you got to take him over Trevor Lawrence. Russell Wilson's going to rebound. Coming into last year, people were talking about him as a top 3 quarterback. He had struggles for one half a season, and all of a sudden, he's not top 5 anymore. That's a little bit of it. I think people overreact with Wilson to how he performed in the second half last year, plus his age. For all but one half season of his career, he's been a top fantasy quarterback every year, and 33 is not old for a quarterback. You want to make me wait on Russell Wilson? That's fine. When I won my FFPC Dynasty League last year, Russell Wilson was my quarterback in my Superflex Dynasty League. I took him as my quarterback, as I believe he was the 9th, 10th quarterback off the board, Anthony. He was my number 1. My number 2 was Cam Newton and Phillip Rivers. Best ball, Superflex Dynasty. I won the Super Bowl. You want to pass on Russell Wilson? Go right ahead. Be my guest.
Well, another name that's getting passed, and maybe a little, I'm having a hard time even doing it, but I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, is Aaron Rodgers going as QB 11. Okay, now I get it. He's an older player. What is he, 38 years old? But we just saw the year he had, and he's still the focal point of that Green Bay offense. He's going as QB 11. Now, is this a situation? Let me float this by you. Is this a situation where somebody says, I'll take Trevor Lawrence at QB 6, overall pick right now sitting at pick number 67, and Aaron Rodgers is going about 30 picks later at 94. Probably too soon. But is it a situation where somebody says potentially, I'll take Lawrence as a 6th quarterback and then I'll double down and get Rodgers for this year? I mean, because if you are talking dynasty, let's be honest, what do you think? Maybe 4 years, 5 years at most left for Rodgers, which I'm okay with, which you're okay with. But other dynasty players and their mindset, they want to plan for even longer than that.
Again, it's the overemphasis of youth. I say you get at least 2 top more years out of Aaron Rodgers. So that gives me 2 opportunities to win my fantasy Super Bowl in the Dynasty League. I can move on next year or the year after. In fact, if I'm playing in a Superflex and you give me Aaron Rodgers and a little bit later on, Baker Mayfield or Daniel Jones,
you'll take it.
I'm set. I'm set. You can draft Aaron Rodgers early on, maybe get one of those young rookie quarterbacks, a little bit later on. Again, you have to put a high emphasis on winning now in dynasty leagues too. I've said it so much. You probably, like, half the people listening there want to smack me, but it's true that you can't tilt it so heavily towards youth and being new in the league. You're not playing 8 years into the future here. So many things change from year to year. When I talk about yearly fantasy football, so much changes from year to year. How much changes between now and 3 years from now?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And that's what makes, and this one, you want to talk about changing. How much can this change over the course of the next week and a half? QB 12 right now is Jalen Hurts. Okay? There is a chance, albeit maybe small, but we've heard the whispers that Philadelphia could actually consider drafting a quarterback in round 1 or round 2 next week.
I'd be very surprised.
I would be surprised too. But you know what? I don't think anybody.
If they take him in like the 3rd, 4th round, it wouldn't surprise me. But
I would say this though: Did you see Jalen Hurts coming last year in round 2? Probably not.
When you take a quarterback in round 2 like they did, that's a significant investment.
It's a significant one, and it surprised people last year. Either way, to me, there's just been enough whispers that I am not taking Jalen Hurts in any format, dynasty or season long, before Matthew Stafford. No, thank you. Okay? Players like that who are going after that are not any. I'm not willing to do that, Scott. Matthew Stafford is going 2 quarterbacks later. Okay? He's going on average about 20 picks after Jalen Hurts. To me, I'm not willing to do it if I'm drafting today because there is that little bit of talk that Philadelphia might do something crazy.
If they don't do it this year, let's throw out this year. There's been talk that if Jalen Hurts doesn't pan out this year, like this is the test year, that they'll draft a quarterback early next year. If you're looking into the future and you're playing dynasty leagues, you have to look in the future for the possible negatives as well. All right, Matthew Stafford isn't 41 years old. In that offense, he's probably got a good 3 years, and there's a lot of upside when you talk about having Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee, etc.
Yep.
You know, he's got the best, probably the best coaching and the best. Nothing's better than playing with Calvin Johnson, but in terms of overall depth of receiving talent, he's probably got the best and the best coaching staff that he'll ever have. So if people want to pass on that in a dynasty league, I'll take Matthew Stafford for the next 3 years easily. And also, let's not forget Matt Ryan either. Okay?
Really?
People are treating Matt Ryan like he's 47 years old, not 37. This guy is still throwing for well over 4,000 yards. Okay? A lot of the good numbers are still there. The touchdown numbers still can throw 26 touchdowns, maybe 30, etc. If I'm doing a pre-NFL draft in the FFPC, I want Matt Ryan, because if they get Kyle Pitts in the draft and you have Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Kyle Pitts, I want a part of that.
Scott, Matt Ryan is right now going in the FFPC Dynasty format as quarterback 25.
That is way, way too low. He still put up pretty darn good numbers last year. You know, he didn't throw for 30 touchdowns, but he's definitely capable, and especially in a best ball format, I would want 24. No way. You know, Julio Jones is not done. Julio Jones is 32 years old. According to Mike Tagliaferri of Fantasy Pros, does a great study every year on the decline of wide receivers. Wide receivers don't start truly declining until age 33. He's a year away from that. They've got Calvin Ridley, and that's still a good passing game. A very good passing game. 24 is way too low. I could 25. See him going with quarterback 14. Yeah, but people treat Matt Ryan like he's on the verge of retiring or something like that. And he's declining big time. You know,
Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, okay, Carson Wentz, Tua, Ryan Tannehill, Trey Lance, all the rookies. All the rookies going before Matt.
I can't take Tua and Carson Wentz over Matt Ryan. I just can't do it.
Trey Lance is going as QB 16.
I realize that he's 37 years old, but I'm going to bank on 2 more good years at least from Matt Ryan.
I mean, just to put this in perspective, right? Matthew Stafford's going
he's
as
quarterback
QB
18 in seasonal drafts.
Yes. He's going. Matt Stafford is going as QB 14, sandwiched by Justin Fields at QB 13 and assumed jet Zach Wilson at QB 15.
It's not crazy, but 24 is. If I can get him in a super flex too, you know, as my second quarterback, I'm very happy. I can understand it in dynasty leagues. You want to take the rookies over a 37-year-old quarterback who's not at that Aaron Rodgers type level, but he's still a very good quarterback, and quarterback 18 in seasonal is too low.
If you were in this dynasty league, tell me you wouldn't. It's almost as if your plan worked perfect. if you took Trevor Lawrence as QB6 and then walked away with Matt Ryan as QB25. Right? Isn't that a perfect storm of a situation, knowing that you have Matt Ryan if Trey Lawrence struggles out of the gate, and then you still have Trevor Lawrence?
Trevor Lawrence 6 overall, though.
Neither am I. I agree with you on that. I'm saying for that person who's disagreeing with us right now, who's saying, no, it's a dynasty league. Trevor Lawrence is generational. Trevor Lawrence is going to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and I want him in my dynasty league. For that person, if they could walk away with Matt Ryan as QB25, even for the short term, that's a slam dunk win for them.
That's great insurance. Yeah, that's terrific insurance.
Baker Mayfield.
But you have to remember the landscape of the NFL and translate it into fantasy. Why did the Seahawks not trade Russell Wilson ultimately? I told you they never would. Because to get a franchise quarterback is so difficult in this league. Look at the draft capital and what people are trading for to get what they hope would be a quarterback of Russell Wilson's caliber in this draft. It is so hard and so coveted to get a franchise quarterback in this league. So you have to remember that in fantasy terms too. And remember that, you know, these rookies, some of them, they still got to prove it, no matter how good you think their pedigree is. And I'd rather go with proven players like Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson, who are already proven fantasy quarterbacks at a very high level.
I agree 100%. It's just very interesting to see how the dynamic changes in that dynasty format over at FFPC. And like Scott said, guys, you can sign up for an FFPC through rotoballer.com. Save yourself some money on that sign up for the first time. Thanks to Fantasy Mojo for providing this ADP over at their site. So we do appreciate that as well.
Scott, and don't forget, go to rotoballer.com/FFPC to sign up.
There you go. Now, Scott, I have one last question for you before we wrap up. And I'm just going to make this very broad, and I'm just going to sit back and listen. You have made your fantasy basketball playoffs. They are underway. So the question becomes, how do you now adjust, adapt? What do you do as the fantasy basketball playoffs are underway?
The same way I was operating during the regular season, but amping it up. All right, I got a bye this week in Rick Kamla's Fantasy Basketball League. Just sitting back and watching the action, observing, you know, still making waiver moves, et cetera, because that's what it's all about. I finished in first place, and I'm tied for third in my other league as we head to the final stretch of the FSGA Basketball League, which is in its first year, and 4 teams make the playoffs. I'm tied for third. I started 2-6. I'm now 22-12. So it's been a pretty good run. I don't know if anybody's going to catch Monkey Knife Fight. Their team is very scary, but you know, but I digress. I'm getting around to a long-winded point, as I sometimes do. In Rick Kamla's league, expert league, I made the most transactions with 93. Now, I have a great core of a team. I have Nikolai Jokic. I have Anthony Edwards. I have Jonas Valanciunas. I have Chris Paul. You know, just some of the guys that I'm building around. Norman Powell, etc. But there are 1-2 spots, sometimes 3, where I'm constantly churning the waiver wire. I made 93 moves this year. And right now, people who play fantasy, DFS and wagering getting completely maddening how many players are being rested on a night-to-night basis by teams that want to conserve for the playoffs and teams that are out of it. So you constantly got to be churning the waiver wire. You don't know when your stars are going to get injured or sit. I went a full week without Giannis Antetokounmpo. You have to be looking ahead, watching the games, paying attention, knowing who's get injured, knowing what teams have tight rotations, which don't. Because right now there are some key guys that you didn't expect who are going to contribute big in your fantasy playoffs. I'm talking about guys like Isaiah Stewart, Darius Baisley. You know, 2 of the names. Joe Ingles, while Donovan Mitchell is hurt, is getting a lot of minutes. Keep watching the Detroit Pistons. They're going to give a lot, a lot of. I mentioned Isaiah Stewart. You know, Killian Hayes might get the chance register some assists. There's been injuries in the Cleveland front court. Isaiah Hartenstein is somebody who can really contribute down the stretch for you. So you have to watch these injuries and who's filling in for it. Right now, my final week of my regular season with Rashawn Holmes out, I'm playing Hassan Whiteside of the Sacramento Kings this week because he's getting in there and he's putting up really, really good numbers. And you also have to watch who's falling off too, because Moses Brown was so good for so long. And now he's splitting minutes there with Isaiah Roby. And all of a sudden, the guy's got scoreless in 2 games. So you got to be careful. You got to keep an eye on the rotations. And make sure you go to rotobowler.com. Check out Adam Koffler's 2 great pieces on team by team, who's going to be rested, who can replace them, and a complete fantasy basketball playoff strategy guide.
Great stuff. As always, guys. Want to remind you, head over to rotobowler.com. Like Scott said, sign up for any of our premium packages. Promo code KING, promo code ACES, rotobowler.com/FFPC. And NASCAR, PGA, MMA, esports, baseball, football, basketball, daily, season long, whatever you're looking for. Follow Scott on Twitter at Scott E. The King. Follow me at Aniano Fantasy. And Scott, always love doing this with you, my friend. Great job as always, buddy.
Always a pleasure, and we'll check you out on rotobowler.com and Rotobowler Radio on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm on every Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, now Sundays, 9 to 11 Eastern with Mike Florio, and you are on 6 to 7 a.m. weekdays with Josh Hayes and Real Talk Ref.
Absolutely, so make sure you check it all out. Guys, watch some baseball, get ready for the draft, set your fantasy basketball lineups, stay smart, stay safe, and we'll see you next time right here on the King in Pocket Aces.